Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Friday night edition of the program. We're back for another hour with you, and happy to be here. Check it out, the phone number. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give me a call. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And like usual, a lot of news, right? We learned about Bill Barr earlier today. Bill Barr doing things he ought not to have done, working with Fuddy Willis. Unbelievable, but believable. That's how the deep state works. And this is why I say it's so hard to put him in jail, because you never know who's who they're working with, and how it's going. Here today, gone tomorrow, right? All fair weather friends. So that's how that goes down. What else we had? It was a lot of big stories today. Letitia James, being investigated by the Department of Justice it's a grand jury investigation into her, so this is a criminal matter, over $454 million civil fraud case against Donald Trump. Isn't it funny how you get people that say, oh, Trump did this, Trump did that, and it ends up that they did a lot of the same things, and worse, because they actually really did them. Listen to this.
We have breaking news. Federal prosecutors have issued subpoenas to New York Attorney General Letitia James. Sources tell ABC News the subpoenas are related to her office's civil fraud case against President Trump and a corruption case against the National Rifle Association. The Department of Justice declined to comment. Now James's attorneys calling it a dangerous escalation and part of a political retribution campaign by the president. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky is here with more on that. Aaron, what do we know so far?
We know these subpoenas were issued by the Northern District of New York. This is in Albany, and they were issued to the Attorney General's office seeking information about two of her cases. The one you mentioned, Diane, the civil fraud case against President Trump that resulted in a $500 million judgment that he is still appealing. The other case involves the office's lawsuit against the National Rifle Association that forced former head Wayne LaPierre to cough up more than $4 million after James alleged corruption and misappropriation of funds. The two cases were successful. Now federal prosecutors, we're told, are subpoenaing for information to see whether James, in the course of those cases, violated the civil rights of either the president or the NRA.
So, Letitia James, and good for her, right? She earned every last bit of that investigation. I don't know what happens with it, but, you know, if you were investigated, if I were investigated, and we were public officials, it would be a stain on our record that we'd only be able to talk through at cocktail parties, right? When I say, hey, man, sorry, man, you got a raw deal. What happened with that? Oh, you know, man, they just, the system's rigged, bro. They're trying to get me, right? That's how it would sound. I don't think she would say something like, well, look, as an officer of the court and a chief law enforcement officer of the state of New York, I fully support transparency and let them dig in. There's nothing for me to hide here. And I'm actually looking forward to clearing the air. She's not going to say that. She's going to be mad as all heck. So anyway, I think that's how that goes. And listen, that's why you can't play dirty, because it'll come back to you. Anyway. Other breaking news, just a little while ago, police announcing that they have taken out a shooter on the campus of Emory University. There was an active shooter there not that long ago. This is a report from NBC Montana. Listen to this.
This active shooter incident that occurred today on the campus of Emory University, just off-site of the CDC and next to this CVS pharmacy. This active shooter incident started this afternoon, and Chief Shearbon will give you some of the details regarding that. I witnessed over the last 2 hours a very coordinated response A lot of training had to go into how these men and women of Emory University, DeKalb County Police, the FBI, the City of Atlanta Police, Fire and Rescue from both DeKalb and the City of Atlanta, the GBI, Georgia State Patrol. I saw officers coming from all over to be able to respond to this incident. At this time, Chief Sherburne will give you more of the details, but at this time, the shooter is deceased, and we don't have any civilians that have been shot in this active shooter incident. Thank God for that. We do have a DeKalb County officer that was also shot, and at this very moment, the CEO of DeKalb County, Lorraine Cochran Johnson, as well as the police chief of DeKalb County, are at the hospital right now, meeting and talking with individuals, the families, and other officers that were involved having to respond to this emergency situation. They will shortly come to this very same spot to give a press conference and an update on that officer and that incident. And at this time also, on the CDC's campus, there are 92 children that are in a daycare that is on this campus. They are safe, and we are setting up with the CDC and all connected parties to be able to get those families reunited with those children at a local school very nearby. And we have the address of that. That Chief will give you the specific address and name of that school nearby. So we are working to unify families. And at this time, there have been no civilian casualties, but this was an active shooter incident. The shooter is now deceased. The campus is, there are no threats on the campus currently, but we still have an active investigation. Atlanta Police Department will be the investigating party. And so we ask that while things are safe, that you don't drive in that part of campus, because we need to make sure that the investigation goes through without any obstruction.
All right, again, that is Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens giving that report, and that's Atlanta. The Montana incident is one I'll tell you about a little bit later. But Andre Dickens, mayor of Atlanta, talking about the shooter at Emory University. And, man, let me tell you, kudos to the law enforcement officers that were able to contain this thing. You've got to keep things like this under control, and you got to get them under control quickly, right? I think the worst thing we saw, and I hate to use the word, but best lesson we learned is Uvalde, right? The shooting at the school in Texas. And I only say best lesson because we learned that you cannot leave an active shooter in place. You can't just hang out outside and try to negotiate with someone who has access to kill people. In that case, little kids. So kudos to those in law enforcement that took this dude out. That's all I can say. You know, people sometimes think that's a harsh thing to say, but I think it's a harsh thing to deal with when it's your family. It's a very hard topic. It's when you're thinking, man, if only the cops could have gotten there sooner. If only they would have used deadly force, right? When it's other people on social media, you go, why did they shoot him in the leg? Why they got to shoot to kill? But when it's your family, I think the shoe's on the other foot, and I think you always got to think that way. Yeah, I guess I grew up with two brothers that were cops, and I personally, I always wanted them to come home, right? You want your family to be a part of your family. You want to see them at the next gathering. So I always look at it that way. It's an honorable profession to be a police officer. It's not an honorable profession to be a criminal. Anyway, we're going to have a little chat with somebody that served during the administration of Donald Trump under the leadership of Secretary Kennedy at the Department of Health and Human Services while all these big changes are going on, getting rid of food dyes, changing recipes, getting rid of vaccines from the federal vaccine schedule, and so much more. And this individual has a real storied career. He's been around the block at the state level, in the private sector, more than 2 decades in government, and serving at the highest levels, serving, just beneath the secretary and the regional director, serving as the executive officer at HHS. He's got a real interesting purview, and typically people like that can't do a lot of interviews because they can't really give you the scoop because they're working and they're busy. But we've got the good fortune of getting this guy because, excuse me, he's retired recently. So now he can spill the beans and give us his opinions. And those are some really solid opinions because he knows exactly what's going on. So I'm looking forward to having our conversation with Dennis Gonzalez, former executive officer at the Department of Health and Human Services. And we're going to do that. Plus your calls and more are coming up Friday night. Happy to be here. It's a blessing to be with you. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Growing up, most medicines were made in America, but today it's a very different story. More than half the pharmaceuticals we rely on are manufactured overseas, and many critical drugs are susceptible to shortages because of an extended supply chain. In fact, only 9% of active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, are manufactured in the United States. This is a national security issue. So today, the FDA is announcing a new program called PreCheck, a powerful incentive that will help bring pharmaceutical manufacturing back to the United States. The FDA is announcing we will cut the red tape and regulatory delays that typically slow down the construction of new manufacturing sites in the United States. In this program, FDA inspectors will work alongside companies from the design phase until the end of construction. This will reduce the guesswork companies often do and help make new facilities ready to go on day one that the construction is done. In addition, we'll streamline the chemistry, manufacturing, and controls, or CMC, portion of the application through frequent meetings and early guidance. We want to hear from you on this proposed approach. FDA will host a public meeting on September 30th from 9 to 4 p.m. We'll present the FDA PreCheck framework and discuss how we can work together to strengthen our supply chain and increase our national security.
That's a message from Dr. Macri. He's the head of the FDA. And, man, first I'm going to say, imagine working for that guy. Boy, it's snooze fest. I'd be like, anyway. But the bottom line there was we have to reshore our pharmaceuticals. This is a big deal, and I agree with him. It is a matter of national security. Just imagine we go through COVID again where we got to turn to, as President Trump would say, China, because we need different types of medicines. And guess what? You can't get them because people are dropping dead left and right because of COVID. We never want to be in that situation again. And I love that the president and the administration are taking steps to address this issue. I want to get the inside scoop from somebody who just retired from federal service days ago, and he's going to spill the beans with all of us. Dennis Gonzalez is a founder of Gonzales Strategies and Solutions. He's a consultant now on matters of government affairs and health and human services. And he's a former acting regional director for Region 2, which includes the Eastern Seaboard and Puerto Rico at the Department of Health and Human Services, where he served more than 2 decades with distinction, serving in 2 decades. That's probably 2 or 3 presidents, most recently serving in the administration or during the administration of President Trump and under the leadership of Secretary Kennedy. Dennis Gonzalez, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. Good evening. Great to be on. And let me take a minute, if I can, to congratulate you on becoming one of the leading voices of conservative talk radio. I'm very proud of you.
Oh, well, thank you, brother.
And
I
you're doing a
appreciate
great
that.
job.
It's very kind of you to say. And if I can be frank, you've been one of the leading voices on public health, in the 2 decades I've known you. Whether it was your service in New Jersey at the Department of Health, your service in intergovernmental affairs in the with the government of Puerto Rico, the federal government, even in the private sector. And this is why I call on you for advice. And when we hear Dr. Macri talk about these things, I want to get your sense of how realistic and how challenging it's going to be to reshore so much of our pharmaceutical manufacturing.
Well, by the way, yeah, you're right about the snooze fest with Dr. McCreary. Super smart guy, but a little challenged on the charisma side of things. But be that as it may, you know, a lot of the medicine that our pharmaceutical companies produce are still manufactured in the U.S. The biggest problem, and you mentioned this earlier, is the APAs, which means that a lot of the different components of the medicine come from other countries or are manufactured in other countries. So even when we manufacture medicine here, we're dependent on these other countries, especially China. And that becomes, you know, a national security issue because China is not, you know, really our friend. And, you know, it's an adversary at best. And, you know, in another situation like COVID or a pandemic of that nature could be a problem to get the materials that we need to manufacture the drugs that we need.
Very good point, Dennis. And, you know, this is, you know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, you know, from the rest of the news of the day, it's kind of like the way the Mexican cartels are reliant on China for the precursor chemicals to produce their fentanyl and synthetic fentanyl. And it seems China is in that game of providing these things. So what's the workaround and how do we, you know, get around these APAs and other precursors?
Well, you know, I commend the president and Secretary Kennedy for making this a priority. You know,
for sure.
And it's, you know, he's not only doing this for pharmaceuticals. You know, he's doing this, as you know, as you can see, all throughout the economy, in every significant sector. You know, cars and other areas. You know, he wants to make sure that they're manufactured here, which is, of course, an economic benefit. You know, creates jobs. But in terms of the pharmaceuticals, it's even more important because it's you know, it's a national security thing. You know, we need to make sure that we don't depend on others, even if they're allies. You know, a lot of the APIs come out of Europe. You know, and they're our allies. However, there may be issues of getting the materials to us. You know, there are supply chain issues. You know, in the event of a pandemic, you know, which we saw during COVID, you know, it'll be hard to get the materials that we need from friendly countries in here as expeditiously as we need. So, you know, there are a lot of considerations, which is why I think the president is doing this, and he needs to be commended for that. And, you know, and the other thing, Rich, is, you know, these manufacturing facilities, of course, you know, they're for obvious reasons. You know, they have to have specific requirements.
Well, Dennis, before you get into that point, I want to take a pause here because the music means we got to take a quick pause and we're coming right back. Let me remind the audience who we're talking to. We're on with Dennis Gonzalez. He's founder of Gonzales Strategies and Solutions, former acting regional director, executive officer at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. And straight up, we're going to talk about vaccines, personal, professional, and more with Dennis Gonzalez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced yesterday the cutting of nearly $500 million of grants and contracts for developing mRNA vaccines. mRNA shots were first used during the COVID-19 pandemic. They instruct the body to produce a fragment of a virus, which then sets off an immune response. Unlike traditional vaccines, they can be made within months and quickly altered as the virus changes. Many scientists and infectious disease experts quickly denounced this move and stressed the importance of mRNA research. The director of the Pandemic Center at Brown University put it like this, quote, "Had we not used life-saving mRNA vaccines, we would have had millions of more COVID deaths."
So a couple of interesting things. Why are we talking about vaccines again? Well, 4 hours ago, Fox News is reporting that federal agencies are now being directed to delete employee COVID vaccination records and exemption requests. How about that? That's a novel idea. Amen. Praise God. Hallelujah. What else we got here? We got CNN reporting yesterday night, cutting federal funds for mRNA vaccines coming from the federal government. Super. And the New York Times just yesterday, RFK Jr. breaking sharply with the mainstream when it comes to vaccines. And again, the New York Times may be forgetting that RFK Jr. is the Secretary of Health. But this is what's going on. This is part of the conversation in the world of public health, and that's why we're talking about it. So I want to bring back in our guest, Dennis Gonzalez. He's now a consultant on matters related to intergovernmental affairs, health, human services, public health, etc. And the company is Gonzales Strategies and Solutions. He's former acting regional director. He's served as executive officer at the Department of Health and Human Services for more than 2 decades and has a very distinguished career in state service in New Jersey and in the private sector, and even liaising with governments in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, all as part of his federal service. So, Dennis Gonzalez, welcome back. I want to get your take on this, both your professional opinion and personal or anecdotal information that you may want to share, because of the shift in policy that we've seen from the time of COVID through today. It's really been a kind of a roller coaster, hasn't it?
It sure has, absolutely. But Rich, before we go there, let me just finish the point that I was trying to make before we went to the commercial break, which is on the facilities. Obviously
regarding the medicine, the pharmaceutical
manufacturing of medicine. Obviously you can't just manufacture medicine in any facility. Unlike cars or any other factories, you can't just start manufacturing medicine without taking into consideration a lot of the restrictions, the requirements, and the skilled workforce. Right. And I bring this up because you and I know of a place that's very special to us, that for many, many, many years produced most of the medicine that was consumed in this country, and that's Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
Puerto Rico.
Pfizer plant was in Puerto Rico. A lot of big plants were in Puerto Rico.
All the major pharmaceuticals had manufacturing plants in Puerto Rico, state-of-the-art manufacturing plants, and they trained the workforce. So Puerto Rico has already trained, very skilled workforce. And there's someone in the Trump administration that we both know, Peter Navarro, who has been a strong advocate for getting Puerto Rico back into the making of medicine. And hopefully, that'll happen sooner than later.
Well, that will be an economic boon for both for the island, I think for really for a lot of things, because it would in many ways reshore it to the United States. It would be important for the economy of Puerto Rico, but overall for the national security of the United States. And that sounds like a win-win. Navarro's a good guy. I've had him on the show plenty of times, and he's a patriot and he's a smart guy. So hopefully these things will be implemented sooner rather than later. And speaking of those pharmaceuticals, vaccines are one that are always in question. And I've had Dr. Robert Malone on this program, the guy who was inventor of this mRNA technology, and he told me that he didn't invent that for COVID, and that it wasn't ideal for the administration of that particular vaccine. It was more of a gene therapeutic type of thing, immunotherapy, and this has come into question many times, which is why I think the current administration is saying, forget it, we're not doing it. I think there's a lot of people that looked at the amount of vaccine injury and vaccine-related death that we saw in Europe coming from the AstraZeneca vaccine and said, hold on, this is giving us pause. So do you think that the move that the administration is making now, is it a sound one?
Well, I think it's important to note, Rich, that the Trump administration, Secretary Kennedy, is not prohibiting the research of the continued research of mRNA.
Right.
What he has done is he's taken a little less than $500 million in federal funds, and he's directing it to other priorities of the administration. But and if you read the woke, mainstream fake news media, they make it seem like it's the end of the world.
Of course.
No, the research will continue. In fact, the federal portion, the $500 million which is the federal portion of the research, is very, very small compared to what the pharmaceuticals themselves and other researchers are investing in this area. So this is just another attempt by those who oppose the Trump administration to make this bigger than what it is. I was reading an article earlier today that people are going to die. Oh, please.
Right. Well, they say that every time there's any cut to any budget.
Exactly. And the other, Trump is the president. He won. And Kennedy is his Secretary of Health and Human Services. And, they have a right to implement their policies. People have a right to protest, have a right to object, but the secretary has made it very clear that he has other priorities right now, and mRNA research is not one of them. And he makes some very strong arguments as to why. And you mentioned, that you had the person who invented this.
Dr. Robert Malone. Yes.
Yes. You're right. I mean, it wasn't invented with respiratory issues, to address respiratory issues, and in fact, the only time that mRNA has been around for decades, the technology, right. but the only time that it was actually used was during COVID. Now, if a technology is that great and that significant, why wasn't it used sooner to develop vaccines instead of waiting for a pandemic
Well, what's the answer to that?
Well, the answer is, and as the secretary has made it clear, is we need to stop making mRNA that this is a miracle drug, that it will cure everything.
Right.
During COVID, millions of people were vaccinated and still got the virus.
Like reinfected after the fact.
Exactly, and still died. And then there were millions who didn't get the vaccine and never got COVID and didn't get sick and didn't die. And then, and Rich, that this is very personal for me. You knew my brother, Claudio, and, he was a perfectly healthy person, never had any major health issues, was hesitant about getting vaccinated, but went ahead and did it, got vaccinated, and, few months later started having heart issues. and ultimately passed away a few months ago.
Dennis,
I
I just want to say, your brother was a patriot. He served this country. He was a great man, and he was a fan of mine, a listener of mine. I really enjoyed.
Oh yeah, he used to listen to you every night.
Yeah, I enjoyed my conversations with him whenever I saw him, and I just wanted to say he was a really good guy, and we mourn his loss.
Thank you. Yeah, he was a big fan of yours. And I asked his doctor, and he said, well, we won't know for years. It'll take years before we know for sure. He says, but I have to tell you, Dennis, that, I've had a lot of patients who started developing these types of issues, like, what Claudio had, after they got vaccinated. So there has to be some correlation there.
Sure, and we know as much as the heart issues with the swelling, the myocarditis, and all that stuff. Whether that's the fatal incident for some people as opposed to others is debatable. But I know young people who were facing pretty severe bouts of myocarditis until that was under control. Mm-hmm. One of them was a brand new pilot, just got out of pilot school and had to take time off from his brand new job as a pilot because he couldn't fly because he had now come down with myocarditis. So those links are there and they're real, and we shouldn't pretend they're not.
Exactly. And I think what Secretary Kennedy is saying is, hey, let's pause, let's take things easy, let's not push. And then the other big problem that we had, Rich, is that, the people were forced to get vaccinated. Come on. And then the Biden administration, the Democrats talk about threat to democracy. I mean, how much more threat to democracy can forcing people to get vaccinated be?
It was a wild time.
Yeah, and I know personal friends of mine who lost jobs, lost their careers because they wouldn't get vaccinated. It's wrong. It's wrong to force people to especially a vaccine that hasn't been proven. Now,
and especially
it may be
healthy people. Like
exactly.
I'd heard of 16-year-old kids that were being told to get vaccinated. And I thought that's insane.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're not sick or old, I think, and that was always my belief, you should, because that was what they told me with my dad. When it was the flu shot or the pneumonia vaccine, they always said, look, if given his age, we should do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. He had a great doctor. But, Dennis, I got to ask you to hold on a second. We got to take another pause right here. We're going to come right back and wrap up. Amigos, we're coming right back with Dennis Gonzalez, founder of Gonzales Strategies and Solutions. And he's a former HHS officer, very, very knowledgeable on a lot of issues. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, familia, welcome back. Getting to your calls momentarily. Open phones across America begins in a moment. 833-4-VALDEZ. Of course, that's Valdez with an S. And I wanted to reiterate that this big move today from the Trump administration, rolling back pandemic-era mandates. Today, they directed all federal agencies to erase any records related to employees' COVID-19 vaccination status, their prior mandates for noncompliance, or even exemption requests. This guidance was issued by OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, and it was in response to recent litigation. It's part of a broader push, which the administration hopes will stop what they're calling harmful pandemic-era policies that were imposed under the Biden administration. So that's good to know. It's good to see that those things are happening. Hopefully they happen at the statewide level for so many people that lost their jobs in state government. But I want to wrap up our conversation on this, as public health remains a very important thing and directly linked to our national security. You guys will recall a couple of months ago, there were several incidents where professors and scientists and researchers were arrested creating, lethal fungus and lethal pathogens at the behest of the Chinese government. And they were doing that right here in American universities. So I want to kind of encapsulate our conversation and get some final thoughts from our guest, Dennis Gonzalez. He spent 2 decades at the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C., in New York City at Federal Plaza. And Dennis Gonzalez, I guess a minute or two to you, your final thoughts on what we need to do moving forward.
Well, again, Rich, thanks so much for this opportunity, and thank you for using your program as a platform to address these issues that are so important and that need to be addressed in a fair and unbiased way. And I thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
I was going to retire from HHS at the end of last year. But I decided to stay on a little longer because I wanted to work with the Trump administration and with Secretary Kennedy. And I have to tell you, and as you mentioned earlier, I retired as of, actually today is 1 week. I retired as of August 1st. I worked with 7 different secretaries of HHS, and I have not seen a secretary more committed, more dedicated to making sure that America's healthy, to do the things that need to be done to advance health in this country than Senator Kennedy. Senator Kennedy was his father. Secretary Kennedy. He's a fantastic secretary, a very super smart, brilliant man, and who's truly committed, and he has the support of a president who is also very committed. And so I think, we will see some really good things come out of HHS in the next few months and even a couple of years.
Outstanding. Dennis Gonzalez, CEO and founder of Gonzales Strategies and Solutions. They do intergovernmental affairs. They do matters of consulting work on health and human services. Dennis, I want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate your insight, and enjoy the rest of the summer. Godspeed, my brother.
Thank you, sir. Take care. God bless you.
You bet. God bless. And amigos, we continue. We're going to have a conversation with you all, with the American people, and we're going to do that straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. Let's go to Steve, Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA. Quickly, speed round. Go for it.
Oh, speed round. Thanks, Valdez, for taking my call.
Yes,
Uttar Pradesh in India. 240 million people in that province. They started seeing that the vaccine was killing their young kids. They stopped it right away, and they gave free ivermectin to everyone. 85% of the people volunteered and went through with it. When we were losing thousands of per day, they were losing 0 to 6 people per day. Ivermectin.
Wow. And ivermectin fixed everything. And it's been working for a long time for malaria, for lots of things. There's a lot of consensus, or some consensus, around the idea that a lot of these ailments that people are facing mimic a parasitic infection, and that's why ivermectin is so effective. Thanks, brother, for the call, WGKA. Bonnie, Charleston, South Carolina, speed round. Go right ahead. I'm sorry, Bonnie. The music got to us. If you can hold on, I'd love to hear your story and your comment. I apologize for not judging the time correctly. But Bonnie is in South Carolina, WTMA. And amigos, I am Rich Valdez. For some of you that are listening on a delay later on, I'm going home. For others, I'm coming right back. Keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. I'm Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. We're back for another hour with you, the American people. It's a blessing to be on this microphone with each and every one of you, and welcome to the program. I'm thrilled to be here. It is Friday night, 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and I'm going to give you the phone number if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And plenty to discuss, right? There was, like I mentioned earlier, Bill Barr. Maybe I'll get into that a little bit later. We talked about Bill Barr was working with Funny Willis. That was some of what came out earlier today. Then there was, let me see, there's another big story today. Of course, Letitia James, we talked about that. We talked about the cops putting down an active shooter at Emory University, and President Trump hosting a peace summit between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Now, this, again, if you don't know about that, that's a thing. That's a thing that's very serious. I mean, if you ever even hung out with some Armenian people, and there were others around that were not Armenians, like the ones they're at war with, or were at war with a million years ago, there's still a little bad blood. And this is a big deal. It's been going on for a long time. So kudos to El Trompito Donalds Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. And it's a good thing that we're bringing about peace. It's a very good thing. Mr. Good, do we have a clip from President Trump on this peace deal? Let her rip.
It's a long time, 35 years. They fought, and now they're friends, and they're going to be friends for a long time. But it's a big, beautiful honor to welcome everyone to the White House for this very historic peace summit between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It's really a great thrill for me. I love seeing good people get together, and that's what you have. You have two great leaders. I want to congratulate these two visionary people, Prime Minister Pashinyan and President Aliyev, for coming to Washington to sign this momentous joint declaration. It's a tremendously important document, and it's been a long time in coming. They were explaining before that so many times they thought they could get there. It never happened. It just never happened.
That, again, is President Trump talking about this latest deal he's making. And again, this is a big deal. He's not kidding here, right? I was at, during the inauguration, I was somewhere with somebody who was Armenian, and this topic came up, and everybody got, the room got chilly. It was, the feeling was ice cold because of this bad blood that has existed for so long. So kudos to President Trump. And again, I feel like I find myself saying that a lot. And no, I'm not tired of winning yet. But I try to make sure that I don't come across as President Trump sneezed. Well, kudos to President Trump. He did a great job. No, I really try to congratulate him on what I think he's doing well. And you find me anywhere in recent history, and I'm happy for you to actually do it. I'm not saying that to be provocative. I'm saying it for real. Another president who's brokered so many peace deals. Right? I mean, during the break, I was just talking to Mr. Good, our new producer, and Mr. Good was telling me about the way his brain works. And he was saying, I tend to look at things, like brand deals. And I said, that's a good thing. And then he hits the music while I'm talking. Good job, Mr. Good, while I was trying to give you some kudos. Anyway, we were talking about this, and the bottom line is that President Trump thinks the same way. He's always thinking of the future, of the brand deal, of how to make it happen. And when you think of this, okay, maybe the brand is Trump equals peace, right? I don't know what the brand deal here is. I do know, I think this is truly his heart as a person. He is an anti-war person. And he sees that silver lining. And I've never seen another person do it this way, because we've been so used to, as Eisenhower coined the term, the military-industrial complex. And listen, very few are more hawkish than me. But the reality is Trump's way works, right? I guess we'll end up probably calling this the Trump doctrine one day, which is, peace through strength, but there's many more components to it, right? It's peace through deals, peace through tariff deals, peace through all sorts of deals. And I don't know what the angle is here, but I can only imagine when you're President Trump and you have these two leaders in your presence, and you're like, all right, President of Armenia, President of Azerbaijan, what do you guys want? I don't know how he approaches these things, but ultimately he gets them what they need, right? Because Trump is about getting to a deal, or like the Gail Carnegie book, Getting to Yes. I think he wrote that. If not, then I messed it up. But I've read that book, and I think they cite him in it. Anyway, point I'm making, that's how Trump works. He comes up with a deal, and, I can only imagine it probably sounds like him picking up the phone and saying, hello, how you doing, Mr. President? Listen, I've got a big, beautiful deal for you, right? And he goes on and paints this big picture about how if you consider doing the unthinkable of making peace with these people, this is what awaits you. This is what we can do. We can work out a deal, right? And he's putting himself out there to negotiate these deals. And I hope that the United States has one way or another of gaining from this. But even if it doesn't, who doesn't want peace? And that's the part that I think is just so underreported, right? You don't hear enough of it. You've got Cambodia nominating him for a Nobel Prize. There should be a number of countries nominating him for a Nobel Prize, and I think Congo did as well. This shouldn't be overlooked, and it shouldn't be an oversight. I think President Trump is truly the president of peace, and it's a good thing. That's all I could say about that. Let me see. There was another deal. He continued right at the White House with all of these leaders, and he's talking about trade, and he's using trade to make peace. Listen to this, number 18.
Your predecessor, Mr. President, President Ronald Reagan, had a phrase as it relates to dealing with the then Soviet Union and also Mikhail Gorbachev. The phrase was trust but verify. Do you subscribe to that same view as it relates to Mr. Putin and Russia?
Well, I do, relating to everybody. I mean, not just President Putin, but also people and leaders that I deal with. Look, I'm dealing with trade. And some of the worst deals we made, some of the worst trade deals we have, I talk about friend and foe, right? Friend and foe, two interesting words. Some of our worst trade deals were not with the foe, they were with the friends. Our friends were just killing us on trade. Not anymore. Not anymore. We're taking in trillions of dollars, and we're respected, and we're settling, through trade, even a little bit here, less here than on some, but through trade, I got things settled. With India, Pakistan, I think it was trade more than any other reason. That's how I got involved. I said, I don't want to be dealing with countries that are trying to blow up themselves and maybe the world. They're nuclear nations. That was a big one. Getting that one settled, I think you'd agree, that was a big one. And they were going at it. They were shooting airplanes out of the sky. 5 or 6 planes got shot down in their last little skirmish, and then it was going to escalate from there, and that could have gotten to be very, very bad. No, I want to save a lot of lives. I love saving lives. That's what it's about. And, when you save lives, you really end up having a peaceful world. Usually that ends up pretty well.
That is El Trompito, again, talking about how he's using trade to get peace, right? Peace through strength and peace through trade. I'm going to call it peace through deals. Let's make a big, beautiful deal. And I think that's the way forward. It seems to be working. Talking about the government cutting $500 million in mRNA vaccines, that's a deal. Right? That's a deal, too. Anyway, straight ahead, they're thinking of moving NASA to Florida, Cape Canaveral, right? Kennedy Space Center. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds is going to join us right now to tell us all about it. Keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. It's Friday night, and it's me, Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
They have this massive building in Washington, D.C., and nobody goes to it. So why not just shutter it and move everybody down here?
Now, Florida's newest senator is getting on board. West 2's Megan Moriarty shows us why support keeps growing.
As DOGE has been coming to several federal departments to make cuts, there's now discussion that moving NASA headquarters to Kennedy Space Center could help in the effort to cut costs. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis touched on this last week.
What they should do is they should stop the project that is scheduled to start to spend $500 million on a new NASA building in D.C. when nobody shows up to work there anyways, or very few. It's like this big vacant building. Scrap that, pocket the $500 million.
Governor DeSantis says to move headquarters here to Florida, as the current HQ is already set to be torn down, something Senator Ashley Moody also agrees with. In a post this week on X, she says, in part, the move would save taxpayers money, encourage collaboration with private space companies, and tap into Florida's talented workforce in the aerospace industry to spur further innovation.
Spurring further innovation. All right, America, welcome back. Welcome back, New York, and everybody that's tuned in. And I want to get to the bottom of this because you just heard Governor DeSantis talking about moving NASA to Cape Canaveral Kennedy Space Center, and sounds like a good idea to me. Matter of fact, such a good idea that there's broad support for it in Congress. Congressman Byron Donalds putting forward a measure to do just that, and we've got him with us tonight. Congressman, welcome back.
Rich, how you doing? It's good to be back with you.
Thanks, brother. God bless. And check this out. I think that, there's been more going on in Washington out of this administration and this Congress than I've seen in a very, very long time. I guess, A, how are you guys managing all of these, juggling all these balls in the air? And B, what's the future? Are you guys going to get this? Is NASA going to come to Florida?
Well, first of all, the way you juggle a lot of balls is just, you just stay focused on the matter at hand. What's going to matter for the people of Florida? What's going to matter for the people of the United States? And what's the most conservative policy you can get through and get accomplished? And, it doesn't really matter how many issues you have to work through. It's really about delivering for the people that you serve. So, we just stay focused on the things that actually matter, the details of all these different items. Don't get caught up in how many items they are. I think in terms of getting this done for NASA, I think it's something that we're well on our way to accomplishing. I was just at the SpaceX launch the other day, the astronaut launch the other day, and you could tell the excitement in the air from the administrators to the people at SpaceX that toured one of their facilities. I know they want to bring the Starship facility to Florida because they want to launch Starship. I was toward the new launch pad that they're tearing down right now that they want to rebuild so they can launch spaceship rockets from the Kennedy Space Center facility. All of this is happening in Florida. So it only makes sense that the headquarters of NASA, or as much of their administrative staff, is actually relocated to Florida as opposed to being in Washington, D.C. They're really not serving much purpose there at all anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, decentralizing the power in Washington, A, is a good political move, and B, it just makes sense. If you're, taking spaceships and sending them into outer space from Florida, you might want to have the bosses there too. Just a novel idea.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And look, I think everybody's committed to this effort. So this is not a fight with the federal government. It's just ways of where we're going to reorganize it to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck and serving the American people in going forward and how we get this stuff done. So I'm excited about all of the inertia at Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral. And to be blunt with you, we're just getting started. This is something where Governor DeSantis, Senator Moody, Senator Scott, myself, the other members of the House of Representatives delegation, we're all focused on bringing NASA to Florida, or as much of it as we can. But it's going to be to the furtherance of the space mission, which is really the center of that is in Cape Canaveral in Florida.
Congressman Byron Donalds, talk to me about this is a novel idea, but whenever you get a really good idea, it seems like there's always some Democrat that gets in the way and wants to stop things from happening. So what type of red tape are you guys facing?
Honestly, not too much. I think most of the fight is really from the guys in Texas. I think, Texas has a history in the space mission, obviously Houston, Texas. And so, the Texas members want to see more NASA infrastructure there. But what I tell them is it doesn't make any sense. You guys don't even launch rockets anymore. You're not launching space shuttles anymore. The Artemis II rocket being built by NASA to go back to the moon, that's being built in Florida. The Starship rockets, those are built right now in Texas, and even SpaceX is saying why, when we're going to launch them in Florida anyway, we might as well build them in Florida if the mission is to get to Mars. So that's what we want to do. It's not so much about Republicans and Democrats, to be blunt with you. This is more states battling out for who's going to get what. But like I tell the Texas members, Houston, you do have a problem, and that problem is Florida.
Houston, we're on with Congressman Byron Donalds from the great state of Florida. And Congressman, the idea sounds good. I'm glad that it seems like a minimal turf war and not a lot of swamp red tape. But I know you were there for the Crew 11 briefing that just happened. Talk to us a little bit about that mission briefing and what that was like.
It was awesome, to really see, a lot of the stuff around these mission briefings happened, when I was a kid. You would read about what was going on in the race to the moon and all of those things. So to see it real time, to be able to have your kids there, my kids were there to see it as well. It was really awesome. The way the technology has really grown and advanced has been tremendous. And I actually went to one of the unmanned space launches that was at 3 a.m. And at first I told my team, I was like, why are we going to be there at 3 a.m. in it? But then when you watch it live and then you see the rocket actually come back down to Earth, the booster rocket, it was tremendous. It really demonstrates America's commitment to space, and that we have corporate partners like SpaceX, but also Blue Origin, also L3, and so many others who want to work with the government in order to make sure that America continues to lead the way when it comes to space missions going forward.
Congressman Byron Donalds, how far, how long, what's the next step in getting us to Mars?
The next big step is really going to be the Starship mission being in Florida. I think that, we're going to have to demonstrate that we can get enough payloads past the moon's orbit, and then you're going to have the necessary propulsion in the boosters after you leave Earth's orbit in order to propel to Mars. And once you get there, you're going to have to actually build out some stable living quarters. Talking to some of their scientists, you'll have to be able to land on Mars, which is a different gravitational force, and then you'll have to be able to refuel so that you can get back. And so all these things really matter. It's really important.
Outstanding work. Amigos, we're on with Congressman Byron Donalds, and speaking of payloads and outer space, Trump's 200 days in office, man, he's knocking it out of the park for America. Congressman, stick with me. Amigos, we're coming right back with me, Rich Valdez, and Congressman Byron Donalds. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our discussion with Congressman Byron Donalds. And President Trump's been in office now 200 days. This is, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not a lot. We're talking about just a few months. And the amount of things that have happened, stopping 5 wars, potentially getting into stopping some more. I mean, there's so many things that are going on. $600 billion investment from NASA just announced on Wednesday. Congressman Byron Donalds, welcome back. I want you to just give us some of the highlights that you think are standing out to you, being that you're in the thick of it.
The biggest is, no more illegal immigration into the country. That's the biggest one. 4 years ago, under Joe Biden, it was a disaster, Rich. I remember I had already gone down to El Paso, the El Paso section of the border, And it wasn't even leaky. And people think, oh, well, we had some illegal entrants. No. This was being done on purpose. It was on purpose. They were letting millions of illegals into our country. It was wrong. It was wrong for the people that they were being trafficked into America. It was wrong for the American people. And so to see the change, which really, demonstrated you just needed a new president, that was exceptional. I think the second big thing is getting the president's agenda done. One big, beautiful bill, extending his tax policies from the first term, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. We're finally going to get stablecoin legislation. We were able to get that done so we can get a regulatory framework for digital assets in our country. You're seeing all the foreign investment, the CBDC. We're putting a kibosh to all that. We're putting the stranglehold on the Green New Scam. I mean, so many things are happening. Everything that people voted for last November, we're getting it done. And so, I've been in Congress. It's my 5th year. And with Joe Biden, it was just a disaster. You're just trying to find ways to stop the bleeding. With Donald Trump back, everything is happening. And his team is done an exceptional job. Everybody's working together. Everybody's making sure that we accomplish real policy for the American people. And that's why I think people who think that, oh my gosh, the midterms are coming, we could lose it all. Listen, don't worry. I think we're going to be just fine in the midterms, because what are the Democrats doing? They're cursing it at press conferences, and then they're backing Mamdani. They're not doing anything of substance that matters in the lives of the American people.
Yeah, Congressman, I was watching Stephen Colbert for a couple of minutes after work the other night, and it seems like he's the new DNC convention, right? He had Kamala Harris on one day, and then the next day he has J.B. Pritzker on, and it seems to me like if you got one person that's a clear loser, she just lost. J.B. Pritzker, doesn't look like a winner to me, but it seems like there's a lack of leadership, a lack of talent on the Democrat side. What are your thoughts?
Oh, it's 100% a lack of talent. You said Colbert's show is becoming a DNC. That's why he got canceled, because his show sucks. It's not even funny. And people know, most people are looking at it saying, this is not what I want. No, this is funny. It's not a joke. And why would I want to hear from J.B. Pritzker or hear from Kamala Harris? He should have brought Donald Trump on. I don't want to take the monologue from your show there, Rich, but his ratings would have got a lot better. They might have made some money if they brought President Trump on. But look, at the end of the day,
that's true.
What we're witnessing is the Democrats have no leadership. And forget the leadership. They have no ideas. Their ideas are stale. The race baiting is stale. The false choices are stale. The yelling at people, trying to make people feel bad about feeling a certain way about simple stuff like protecting puberty of our young kids, common sense policies that everybody supports, and they try to shame people or cancel people if you don't agree with them. I think a lot of people are over the Democrats. That's why their approval ratings are in the toilet. You look at their approval ratings right now in the toilet. It's a disaster, and it's simply because they have no ideas for the future of our country.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's all sizzle and no steak. And you brought up Mamdani, and again, he was a little bit of sizzle, no steak. People were early on a couple of months ago saying that Curtis Sliwa, the only Republican in the race, should get out of the race. And here it is yesterday. He outraised by $300,000, beating Mamdani, making him very competitive in the race. And I think we're only going to see more of that from Republicans as Democrats get exposed for who they are. Do you think that's the number one task that I guess a politician or a candidate would have, or even those in the media, is just really showing things for what they are, or is there more to it?
Yeah, no, that's mission number one. You have to be able to speak clearly to the American people, talk about these issues in real time and what they actually mean. And you have to be able to get across your values, not just your values, but your ideas of how it makes their lives better. You got to be able to communicate. In politics in 2025 and beyond, if you can't communicate, God bless you, but you need to take a seat, because that's where we are. And then number two, and this is something in Florida we've demonstrated, Governor DeSantis has done this tremendously. Do what you said you were going to do. If you campaigned and said you were going to do these things, then you move heaven and earth to get them done. And if for some reason they don't get done, then you go back and explain to the people why they weren't done and what needs to happen at the next election so you get more help to get them done.
100%. Congressman Byron Donalds, we got about 90 seconds before I got to hit a pause, but I want to get your thoughts on this grand jury that's being impaneled allegedly in Florida, which to me would be a game changer, right? Because when people tell me we're going to see justice, I say, how are you going to see justice if we're going to do it in D.C. like we've always have? So I think changing the game is going to change the results. Talk to us about that.
look, that grand jury, if it is going to be impaneled in Florida, then you're actually, I think, going to see a real outcome from a grand jury. Let's just be honest. Whoever you would impanel in D.C., they have a political axe to grind against Republicans and against Donald Trump. It's very clear from how they vote every single cycle. Put it in Florida. Let Floridians who are not caught up in the swamp and the culture of the swamp actually look at this with fresh eyes. And I think it'll be the first step towards actually having real justice in this Russiagate situation. Look, at the end of the day, look, the Democrats, what they wanted to do is they wanted to weaponize their hatred of Donald Trump using the intelligence community to do that. That is flat out wrong. In my view, parts of that are criminal, but we're going to go through that process. Let's put it in Florida. Let's actually do something constructive for the American people.
Amigos, the next governor of Florida, Congressman Byron Donalds, thanks for being here, brother. Godspeed.
Hey, see you, Rich. Love you, baby. Take it easy.
You bet. God bless. All right, amigos, we continue with more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
25th percentile is the lowest income, 75th percentile is the highest income. And what I find fascinating about this, Mr. President, is every income group did better. The red is President Trump, the blue is President Biden. Every single income group did better under President Trump. But what's really amazing is look what happened under Biden. The lowest income group lost income under Biden. They were poor 4 years after Biden's presidency. No gain virtually whatsoever for the middle class. And the rich was the only group that did better under Biden, which is ironic because Biden keeps saying he was trying to get rid of income inequality. He made income inequality worse, not better. It was President Trump that reduced income inequality.
These numbers just came out, by the way.
Yep. And then finally, these are the numbers just I just showed you in percentage terms. Mr. President, these are the numbers in dollar terms. So even the lowest income, 25th percent, gained about $4,000 in income. That's a lot for a lower income family. $6,400 for the middle class and almost $10,000 for the richest. So you can see every income group did better under Trump than Biden by a wide margin.
That's our buddy Steve Moore, former economic advisor to President Trump and the White House Council of Economic Advisors, giving this presentation yesterday at the White House in the Oval Office. And his analysis, along with former Reagan economist Art Laffer, they find that in every category that they noted, Trump is scoring better than Biden did. Very interesting stuff to take a look at indeed. I want to go to your calls. Let's go to Chet in Dallas, Texas, KLIF. Chet, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. Yeah, I wanted to talk about prescription drug prices. That's amazing. President Trump has said on a number of occasions the past week or two that he's been able to lower prices for prescription drugs by 1,500%, 1,600%. Can you explain how exactly that works?
Well, I think he explained it, and it wasn't that it's already been done. He's talking about bringing down the cost of prescription drugs by getting pharmaceutical companies to alleviate some of the R&D cost so that it's not all on the United States, right? So basically they recoup their cost when they sell the drugs back to us. He was saying what you have to do, I forget the term that they use for this, but Basically, they have to divvy it up fairly and evenly so that everybody's kind of paying their fair share. So it's not the U.S. that's paying the bulk of the R&D, and then the rest of the world, Europe and the rest of the, the continents that are participating in receiving these drugs, get it at a way cheaper rate. So that's part of how the burden is not going to be put on the U.S. And there's a report in Reuters just yesterday that highlights this. And part of what the United States is doing is they're getting the drug costs to match the lowest rates offered to any other comparable country. And again, there's a whole term for this practice. The term's escaping me, but it's a good thing. And this comes on the heels of him actually, well before Biden even tried to do it, in the first Trump administration, he imposed certain caps, which honestly I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of government-imposed spending caps on a lot of things. But one of them was on insulin, the other one was on EpiPens. And these things, again, very important, life-saving things. So those are some of the ways that that's happening. I think another way is something we talked about earlier with Dennis Gonzalez, former HHS executive, who was explaining that reshoring a lot of pharmaceutical manufacturing back to the United States, i.e. what we talked about was, Puerto Rico, and how Puerto Rico, a few decades ago was a powerhouse in the manufacturing of American pharmaceuticals, and that's kind of dissipated since, but there's a move to revive that, which is a good thing. One of the caveats to that was that even drugs that are made in U.S. facilities still lack certain precursors, or APAs as they're known, to create these drugs, and those still come from China. So there's still some national security threat there, and there's an import issue. That not necessarily affecting the price, but definitely affecting how we continue to shore it up here in the United States. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of perspective, Chet. And thank you, brother. I appreciate the call. Very good question. Very smart question. Let me see. Where do we go from here? Let's go to Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina. WTMA. Go right ahead.
Hey, you know what? When I was in Korea, I learned a new term for people. They call them slicky boy. You like what the Korean people call a slicky boy. You
I am
just
very
play
slick,
both
sir.
hands against the middle.
Call me Slick Rick.
Yeah, you're a slicky boy. Hey, you commend that guy for having his brother that was a veteran, and then you turn around and vote for a guy with 4 effing deferments. And by the way, on them tariffs, hey, Trump, where the F your own people? Who you think's going to be paying for them damn tariffs?
Well, I think we the people pay for those tariffs in part. But again, this is why I've never favored tariffs, right? But I think the reason these tariffs are working is because it's optional, right? You really, unless you're in a position where you can't get it from anywhere else, you're paying an optional import tax. Some people may have to pay it, right? They're going to have to bake it into certain things. But this is kind of a necessary thing. It's kind of like saying, look, it's part of the medicine you have to take, I believe. The other part of this is, yeah, of course I commend those that serve this country. And what, am I supposed to hate Donald Trump for getting deferments? I mean, what am I going to do? Sit here and hate the guy?
4, okay? 4, slicky boy. 4 deferments.
It doesn't matter to me how many he's done, honestly. What matters to me is what he's doing in the White House, Jerome. And in the White House, he's making a hell of a difference. We just talked about all the impact he's making on the cost of prescription drugs, the moves that he's making with Big Pharma to try and bring most, if not all of it, back to the United States. You've got car manufacturing coming back to the United States. You've got Apple investing $600 billion. I mean, when have you heard of this type of investment? You haven't. And when they talked about it, President Obama said, what's he going to do, wave his magic wand? Well, it looks like he's waving the MAGA wand. And that's getting you mad, Jerome.
Yeah, okay, slicky boy.
I think you're the real slicky boy here, brother.
I know what he's going to be doing. He's going to be grabbing some women.
Oh, boy. And there he goes. You know, you're going to get banned from this show if you keep talking slick like that. The bottom line here is I think ultimately what we're all going to do is celebrate all the winning we're doing. And I think you're going to see real soon. Things are starting to pick up. I think they're going to continue to pick up. And then what? What are we going to say? You're going to talk about his hair? You're going to talk about you don't like his suit? You don't like his tan? Because you're not going to have too many other areas. I mean, what do you don't like the peace? You want to go back to the wars? Come on, brother. Anyway, amigos, we come back to you guys. Minnesota, Idaho, and more on hold. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, let's go to Robert, St. Cloud, Minnesota, KNSI. Go right ahead. Speed round.
Yeah, hi. Do you find it a bit rich that the guy that fired the labor statistics person is lowering drug prices by 1,500%? Can you explain to me how you lower something by 1,500%?
Didn't we just do this call, Robert? I think I just spent 10 minutes explaining this to your friend who just called with this. You got to pay attention, brother.
Math?
I'll give you the basic math. First thing you do is you get a Q-tip. You clean out your ear, right? Then you take a sip of water to clear out the haterade that you're gargling and choking on. And once you've got the hatred out of your mind, then you sit there and you analyze it. Now, I just gave you the source. It's in today's Reuters. If you go to Reuters, it's an article from today. It's updated today. It's from yesterday. Trump pharma industry discussing boosting medicine spending abroad to cut U.S. prices. And this is about paying the lowest price that every other country pays because we have been footing the bill for R&D forever and a day, which would equal, in some cases, 1,500% deductions because we add in all of these billions of dollars that we spend on research and development. Now, I literally just said this to one of your friends, one of the other trolls that calls in. So hopefully you get that. I mean, I can't make it simpler than that. But good luck to you, brother. I appreciate it. This is what happens when Trump is winning. The trolls come out in full force. They have nothing to do, so they try to make nonsensical arguments, and then they try to insult you. Look at Jerome. Jerome's so funny. He's so friendly. He's so nice. Now he's calling here talking about grabbing him by the P word on the air. He's trying to get me in trouble with the FCC. Come on, Jerome. They were trying to sabotage me. I think Jerome and Mr. KNSI over here, whatever his name was, who just called from Minnesota, and the other guy who called, these guys are all reading from the same script, right? And I don't know who's funding these. Every now and again, you get these funded attacks on talk radio where they call in, they give you a script, and they go, call in and ask to host this. And he was trying his best, as you could see. As I was talking, he was still talking because he's reading a script. I've seen it before. It's not the first time we've seen it. It's not the last time we'll see it. But the good news is, amigos, that we know what's coming. And more winning it is. Let's go to Jane. She's calling us from Saratoga, New York, WGDJ. Yeah. Go right ahead, Jane.
Hey, Rich. I want to say something positive. I want to point out what Trump is all about. He is the best president we have ever had. And his strongest point in life is he is not a politician. He is a brilliant human being. He's fighting for our rights, the rights of everyone in our country, and he wants to restore our country to greatness, and he's the one person who can do it. And I totally believe that. Let's get rid of Jasmine Crockett, okay? What a nutbag.
Yeah, I love Jasmine Crockett. She's such a, I call her a cutie with a tootie because she got some attitude. But she is a pretty girl, and I think she's going to come around one of these days. I really do. I don't think she's as far gone as AOC, but what do I know? Jane in Saratoga, New York, WGDJ, thank you for your call. Good weekend to you. God bless you. And amigos, we continue our conversation straight ahead. For some of you, this is the end of the road, but you know, you can always get me at richvaldez.com if your local station doesn't carry you. Either way, we're going to continue the conversation. Trolls are welcome. I'll bring it to the front of the line as long as you're not repeating the troll that went ahead of you. I'll be right back. Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of the program, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. It's Friday night, by the way, so I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys. I see we got calls from Vermont, South Carolina, Idaho, and more online. We're going to get to you momentarily, and of course, lots to discuss this evening. We had some good conversation earlier. We're going to have some more good conversation right about now. Very interesting happenings today, a lot of different things going on. You got President Trump brokering yet another peace deal at the White House. We also have some other breaking news. Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York, who maliciously went after Donald Trump with a $454 million civil fraud case. She's under investigation, and that's a grand jury investigation, a federal case that's looking into what she did and why'd she do it? Why did she bend all these rules? Why did she, kind of invent things? Why did Alvin Bragg made a local misdemeanor into a federal crime and then prosecuted it at the local level in New York City? Why did he do that? I mean, so many out of the norm things that happened here, and they all happened to a guy they thought wouldn't win. And guess what? Now he's won, and now they have to answer. Right. And this is not retribution. This is really accountability, in my opinion. This is how do you weaponize your office? How do you weaponize the system of justice and think you're going to get away with it? Well, I'll tell you why. I think the Democrats, and not every Democrat, but Washington Democrats and establishment Democrats, they are very brazen lately. I think they believe that there is an arrogance to them where they believe that the government exists for their pleasure, right? And again, the government, what is the government? What I believe, it's an instrumentality of we the people, right? It's we the people that have the power because we've been given liberty by who? By God. That's why I get to walk around free, not because they say I can walk around free. I walk around free because God made me free. But that's not how Democrats think. They don't care about liberty. They don't care about providing for their family, although I'm sure it's on their list of priorities. Their main priority is, what can I get out of this government? How can I benefit myself, ingratiate myself in what organization? How do I make money on this? How do I get power from this? And it's evident in everything that they do. Meanwhile, I mean, just look at the presidencies of Joe Biden versus the presidency of Donald Trump. Completely different. In one, you've got Joe Biden, who basically oversees the largest human smuggling operation in American history, sanctioned by the United States government, sponsored by the United States government, makes Kamala Harris the border czar, and it's a free-for-all. You're talking about millions upon millions of people coming into this country. He turns the border agents into travel agents. Instead of arresting people, they come in and they get a midnight flight to Boston, a midnight flight to New York City. The things that have occurred on Joe Biden's watch are unspeakable and unthinkable, and I'm glad those days are over. So, in my opinion, Attorney General James and many others need to be looked at and realistically, right? And again, I say you take the shot and let the chips fall where they may. Why? Because I know the Department of Justice doesn't like to take cases they can't win. They try not to go after people if they don't think they can get a conviction. But I believe that it's important for the sake of the record. Now, I get it. If you take a shot at the Attorney General and you don't get a conviction, she's going to turn around and say, told you I didn't do nothing wrong. Told you were wrong. So that's contrary to my belief. But I think you have to do these things, and mainly not through the Department of Justice, but you do it in Congress. You hold hearings so that there is an actual record of these questions and answers. You can ask the tough questions. You can cross-examine these people. You can direct examine them, and you should, so that this goes on, so that when your grandchildren's grandchildren go to the National Archives in Washington and say, I want to know what happened. Let me hear this testimony from this lady they say was so bad, or they say was so good. And you find out she was really so bad. That's correcting the record, and I think that is incredibly important. Because without that, you lose. The good news is history is written by the winner. And in this case, the winner is Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. So that's my thoughts on that one. Then you got, I wasn't going to get into this because I don't know a ton about it, but I saw it and I thought it was great. It made me happy. The actress Gina Carano, she won a major settlement in a lawsuit against Disney. And what's interesting about this is, again, they tried to destroy her because she had some conservative opinions and it got out. And I sympathize with that because similar happened to me when I worked in government. Somebody looked over my shoulder, saw that I'd taken a photo with Governor Christie at the governor's mansion for the Christmas party. And he, with a look of disgust on his face, he was like, "What, was that you? Why were you there?" And it was the beginning of, really the end. It was the beginning of a lot of people no longer liking me just because I was friendly towards a Republican in government. And yeah, that was seen as sacrilege. How could you be a Hispanic and support a Republican? How could you be part of that administration? How could, first thing he asked, literally the first thing he said, he stuttered as he said it. Do you support unfunding Planned Parenthood? And I looked at it and I said, of course. I don't like Planned Parenthood. And he said, but Rich, do you know the, and he started trying to sell me on why, this is a government employee trying to sell me with passion, nervous. He was getting nervous of why I didn't care for it. And I didn't think government money should go to this private organization that amongst, he said, it's not just abortions, And I was like, listen, this is literally the defense of a serial killer. You go to a serial killer and you go, listen, they're not just a murderer, right? They also used to volunteer in their church, and they also used to sell Girl Scout cookies. None of that stuff matters when you are a serial killer. And he was just attempting to make all this case to, they look at you as if you don't know, right? As if you're just some unsuspecting, unknowing person that just got duped by the fake news. And again, I understand that because I look at many Democrats that way. I think that the key difference here is that many Democrats really do react on emotion. And I can tell you, I rarely react on emotion. I typically use logic. It always comes down to dollars and cents and can it be done, which is why I usually am at odds with my QAnon friends who are so emotionally invested that, the Barack Obama we see today is really a body double clone, blah, 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 blah. And the real one was already put to death because of his crimes. And now what we're seeing is a show or a movie playing out. I mean, how do you take anybody like that seriously with all these presuppositions and all of these? And the only defense they have in their logic is, were you saying that can't happen? Come on, bro. Yeah, you know what else could happen? I could wake up being 6 foot tall tomorrow and maybe long blonde hair like Thor and blue eyes. Yeah, it's possible, right? I mean, it's not impossible. This is how they do it. And this is why I don't mess with the conspiracy folks. And they hate being called that. They like to be called what? Conspiracy facts, right? But the bottom line here, I'm getting too ahead of myself. Bottom line is with Gina Carano, they treated her poorly. They got rid of her from her TV show, The Mandalorian, and it was unfair. And she won a big settlement. On Twitter, I saw that she was happy, and I was happy that she was happy. I don't know her, but I think it's good when somebody who was treated poorly succeeds, if that makes any sense. Also, Israel is taking over Gaza. Hamas says they're going to kill the hostages. And President Trump has floated taking over D.C. More on that in a little bit. Plus, we have some very interesting conversation coming up. What? Did you know that some extraordinarily high percentage of young people, Generation Z in particular, are bringing their parents to job interviews? Now, I've dropped my kid off at a job interview and waited outside, but I've never gone in with her, at least not yet. Anyway, we're going to learn more about that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm
I'm a member of Gen Z. I personally witnessed some of these behaviors among my peers, but it's not just me saying that. Another survey of over 700 hiring managers actually found that over half of them had witnessed these behaviors. Said that interviews that they had with Gen Zers, they found unprofessional behavior, they found lack of preparedness. So it's really hard to have sympathy for a generation that is really showing these behaviors in interviews. I mean, the reality is Gen Z is entering into a pretty tough job market. Just 12% of Gen Zers leave school, graduate school with jobs secured, and then 60% of them remain unemployed after graduation. But like I said, it's hard to have sympathy for a generation that is showing these behaviors in job interviews, bringing their moms to interviews, having moms call hiring managers. I don't think that if you show those behaviors, you can expect to clock in on Monday.
Clocking in on Monday. Listen, that's Emily Sturge. She's from Campus Reform. She's a frequent guest on this program, and she was on Fox News Channel talking about this topic. And I think it's interesting, right, that you hear that from her perspective. I also want to get the perspective of our guest, because this is a fascinating thing. And Julie Jones is the CEO of Today's Professionals Consulting and Development, and they deal with people in the workplace all the time across multiple generations, not just Gen Z. And what you just heard, that 77% of Gen Z job seekers have brought a parent to an interview. This blew me away. Now, listen, I'm all about people relying on their parents. I really am. I'm a dad of a teenager and a young 20-something, and I want them to rely on me. And they're very, I'm going to use the word, hyper-independent. I'm the last one to find out. I'm the last one they ask for help. They don't ask me for money. They like to work. They don't want to rely on me. But I try to be involved. I'm like, hey, if you need me, let me know. It's like I'm almost over-offering. But nobody's ever asked me if for even advice. Well, my little one does, but my big one never. And so this blew me away because, they're in that Generation Z. So I want to get to the bottom of this with our guest, and let us welcome her in. Julie Jones, welcome.
Hi, Rich. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Now, do you deal with a lot of Generation Z in your consulting and your workplace activity?
I do. I deal with a lot of different generations, but the Gen Zs are the ones that are coming into the workplace. So we're bridging that gap between college to career, and so a lot of the companies have onboarding programs that go a year now instead of just a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding program. They're hiring in cohorts and bringing them through a years-long program to help them onboard, and teaching them professionalism and communication is a big part of the program.
Outstanding. So how much success are you having? And would you say you agree with this survey? Is it really 77%? Is that what you would say you've seen of people saying, hey, I'm going to bring my mom with me, or I'm bringing my dad with me?
Well, about a year ago, Intelligent.com came out with a survey that said it was 20% of people that brought their parents to job interviews. This is a staggering number. But, I've heard a lot about it, and I've talked to people, and I've had them say, I've heard it. It hasn't happened to me. But last week I had lunch with a friend of mine who asked me for my take on this, and there was a lunch interview, and a applicant brought his father to the job interview. And I'm a certified etiquette consultant, and so the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, you brought somebody else to a meal to have the company pay for another mouth to feed, which I thought was really rude. But
right, without asking.
He asked, yeah. But then they were shocked not only that he showed up, they needed an extra seat at the table, but they didn't really know how to handle it, because at first their thought process was, we're not here to interview you, we're here to interview your son. But they didn't really know how to handle it. It was something that they said they allowed him to stay, but then he answered questions, and they finally had to say, look, we're interviewing him. So it really sets a bad tone if somebody shows up at an interview unprepared with a parent, can't communicate or make eye contact what kind of employee are they going to make? How are they going to
Yeah.
react with the team, and what kind of team member are they going to make? So, I really feel like we really need to meet these Gen Z students where they are, and let's bring them forward. Let's really pour into the training to help them, because they do have a lot to offer. They're very smart, but we do need to have them interact a little bit better if they're going to be able to make it and be successful.
I think this says a lot about the parents.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is one of those things where, if somebody comes to me for a job and look, I'm here with my dad, I would likely tell them, well, can you wait outside? I mean, I'm not here to talk to you.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I would likely tell the person too, hey, listen, I'm going to try and look past this, but in reality, I'm not. I'm not going to look past this. I'm not going to consider you for a job. You're showing me so much, uncertainty. And at least in this business, you need certainty, right? When you're in the radio, it's live radio. You've got to be certain about what you're doing.
That's absolutely right. And there's a saying that says, when people show you who they are, believe them. And so bringing a parent to an interview says, I'm not confident enough to step out and be on my own. So you have to believe them.
That is absolutely scary. Folks, we're on with Julie Jones, workplace expert and CEO of Today's Professional Consulting and Development. And, this is, again, a very, very weird situation. People that are not dressed up. How do you, if I'm the hiring manager, right? I don't want to become an HR nightmare. I hire you. And I say, hey, Julie Jones, I'm going to lose my stuff if somebody comes here not dressed well, not prepared, and doesn't even look at me in my face while I'm talking to them. As the hiring manager, what advice do you give?
To you or to
me?
To you. So, well, we need to put some training in. If we need to hire for culture and train the skill, and we need to just keep finding people who are willing to step up. There's such a thing as a halo effect, that when you show up and you're dressed nice, and I'm not saying you have to be in a suit, depending on what job you're interviewing for, but you always want to dress a little bit nicer than what you're expected to be if you get the job, right? You always want to put that best foot forward. But when you are put together, you look nice, you've taken the time to get dressed and take care of your appearance, the halo effect says people will automatically think you're smarter, because we all want to do business with people who have their act together.
Makes sense. Julie Jones, hold that thought. We're coming right back to continue our discussion on this survey. 77% of Gen Z job seekers are bringing their parent to an interview. Whoa. Anyway, we're going to talk about that with Julie Jones from Today's Professionals, and we're going to do that straight ahead. Plus, your calls are coming up. Open Phone America, 833-482-5337 or 833-4-VALDEZ.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A new survey from something called Resume Templates found that 77% of Gen Zers admitted to bringing a parent to a job interview. And that's not the only ridiculous finding that paints Gen Z in a bad light. 53% said their parent had spoken with a hiring manager on their behalf. Is this real? And 1 in 6 hiring managers also reported Gen Z applicants use their phones during the interview, which is rude to both the parent that's with them and Kennedy, you've got Gen Z kids. Is this real?
I do. God, I hope not for mine, because, if they ask me to go on an interview, I would say absolutely not. That at some point you have to become an adult, but we have an entire generation of people who, I did a podcast about this today, they're so happy to be stunted in this arrested development, and they want to be early adolescents. There's this trend that started in China of adults using pacifiers to self-soothe. God, I know, it's disgusting. Just go find a pair of boobs.
That took us off topic. That is a clip from Greg Gutfeld's show. And again, talking about the incredulity around this study that finds 77% of Gen Z job seekers have brought a parent to a job interview. I have to say, I still think this is a prank, but it clearly has its roots in reality where people are, thinking that's okay. And while I guess it's nice that they have that relationship with their parents, not so nice that they don't feel able to do this on their own at this working age, right? Even if they're like 15 or 16, first job type of thing. So we continue our conversation with our guest. She is the CEO of Today's Professionals, Consulting and Development. Julie Jones is with us. And Julie Jones, I want to get, I guess, some of the, let's take the other side of this coin. For example, we're hearing about what they're not doing well. From your experience when you're placing or training or consulting with Gen Z job seekers, what are they doing well?
Well, they bring a lot to the table as far as their technological knowledge. They can get things done quickly. They have a lot of knowledge. They're not afraid to try and do things. Where we're finding the gap is in the communication with their peers and participating on projects and communicating that they are done with the project or that they have filed it where it needs to go.
So follow
or
through.
Even, yes, and also their time. They don't have the value of time like we do. If you're supposed to be at work at 9, they may show up at 9:30, 9:45 and think it's okay because they're very fluid with their time. Because in their minds, this is what my understanding is when talking with employers, their mind is, well, I'm going to get my work done, so what does it matter if I'm here at 9 or 9:30? But their bosses are saying, but you missed the team meeting. We needed you
now,
here.
Nobody gets fired? Is that the reason that they haven't learned
they
about
do.
life?
Yeah, no, they do. They do. They either, and we're finding that a lot of hiring managers are just not hiring them anymore. They're just saying, no, if you're fresh out of college, you don't have years behind you, you can't come here because it's just there's too much to work through there at the beginning.
Yeah, you could also say if you don't show up to work on time, you can't work here, right? Because that's
right.
It's just
right?
insane to think that you're going to be able to do that. I used to run a small business, had a barbershop, and my hours were like 9 to 5, and I was a barber, and so it was great for me. I was there early, and typically older people like to come in early, like real early, like between 6 and 9 early. I opened at 9, which was late for some barbershops, and so I occasionally would get there, and there'd be a couple of old timers there that were looking for a shave and a haircut type of thing. And it was great. And I would tell people I was getting, our hours are 9, but if you get here early, I can get here early because there's clientele early for walk-ins.
Right.
And these aren't Gen Z. These are my Gen X peers back in 1999 when I was a barber. And they would look at me like I was crazy. Be like, you want me to get here before 9 a.m.? It was just, it was amazing then that I had to deal with that. So I can only imagine how people are still dealing with that now. Godspeed to everybody who has to work in management. I don't envy any of those people. Now, we talk about what they do well, and you told us some of those things. I guess what's your best advice to anybody who's listening who may be Gen Z? We do have some listeners. And anybody who is in charge or, is related to some Gen Z folks in their family, what advice should they give them?
I would say be very encouraging, but set boundaries and stick with them. And to the Gen Zs, I would say if you want to succeed in life, if there's something in your heart or if you see your future and it is a nice home and nice cars and you want this life that you're seeing, then the way you get it is to start changing you. Start learning how to have a right attitude, how to show up with an attitude of I'm here 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early every day rather than 15 or 20 minutes late. And have a heart of service and protect your image, show up, dress properly, put your phone away, focus on the people in front of you. Because while a lot of people are worried about artificial intelligence taking their jobs In my world, AI stands for actual interaction. And at the end of the day, there are always going to be people looking for people with good people skills. And that's the defining characteristic between people who truly succeed and those who just have average lives.
Outstanding. Julie Jones, let everybody know how to find you if they want to hire you or consult with you. Where do they go?
Go to my website, todaysprofessionals.com, and you will be able to find me.
Outstanding. Julie Jones, CEO of Today's Professionals, todaysprofessionals.com. I want to thank you for being here. Godspeed to you. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you, Rich. It's been good talking with you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Take care. And amigos, we're getting to your calls right now. I see we got some troll activity. Oh, they don't give up. That's good. We love the trolls. And we've got some comments coming in from all different places. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And again, it's a time-honored tradition on this program, Open Phone America, dubbed so by Larry King back in 1978. A tradition that went on for another 3 decades with Jim Bohannon, the late, great Jim Bohannon. And, of course, you and I get to do it tonight. We get to do it, and in the words of Bill O'Reilly, we get to do it live. So I want to give you the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ, and let's hit the phones. Let's go to Jimmy, Greenville, South Carolina, WCRS. Jimmy, go right ahead.
Did you flunk middle school math? I'm going to give you a third chance.
No, I think it was your mother that flunked middle school math, but get to your point.
How do you decrease 1,500% from something? Can you explain that? Forget pharmaceuticals. How do you do that to anything?
Well, the good news is it's my show, so you don't get to call here and put me on the spot and try to get me to do things. I'm not a trained SEAL. It's going to and do little tricks for you. But, Jimmy, let me ask you a question, because obviously you don't have female companionship on a Friday night, and it's in your best interest to wait 47 minutes to talk to me, to waste my time and that of our listeners. So what type of pathetic individual are you that calls here to ask stupid questions and take shots at Donald Trump?
After Ghislaine Maxwell, what other sex traffickers will Trump try to protect?
Well, presuming anybody cares, I'll let you have your guess. What's next?
I don't know. Hopefully Trump is going to end up in jail once he's exposed as the
Now, who would do that? Who would put a sitting president in jail? By what authority?
If videos come out with him,
Sir,
of him
let me
with
teach you
underage
something.
girls.
Let me teach you something. Trump could shoot people right now and not go to jail. Obama could shoot people and not go to jail. There is a level of protection. It went to the Supreme Court, and it's always been there anyway. The Department of Justice has these guidelines. You cannot indict a sitting president, which means you can't even advance criminal cases. So all these cases that he has that are, semi-adjudicated, Arizona, Georgia, nothing is allowed to happen because it impedes the office of the presidency. So whatever fantasy you're concocting, Jimmy, where that Trump is going to go to jail because of this or that or some other craziness that you're, dreaming and salivating over in your mind, it's not going to happen. The reality is he won. He spanked your side. You lost. And now you have your panties in such a tight bunch because he's winning. And because the crazy MAGA people like me, we get to talk our smack. And this is what's got you up on a Friday night calling me. Is that right?
Out of all the pedophiles who've been president, Trump's the best one, right?
Well, it seems to me that you talk a lot about these pedophiles. And judging by the behavior, this kind of stalkerish vibe that you give me of waiting almost an hour to come on the radio to talk smack, tells me that you are the type that is likely doing that type of thing. And again, that's my opinion. Now, Jimmy, I don't know that you're scoring any points with anyone listening to this show. A lot of people are fans of the president. A lot of people are fans of their 401k. They're fans of the money they have invested in the stock market. They're fans of cryptocurrency investments. And all of those investments are doing well. So what do you think you actually achieve? Is it someone paying you to do this trolling, or do you really do it because you're getting off on it?
Are you one of these MAGA idiots who doesn't understand who pays the tariffs?
Oh, I understand you pay the tariffs, right? Because you're the one that probably wants to have your butt so far up, your nose up China's butt, buying their products. But I think there's a lot of us MAGA people that want to buy America first, made in America. For example, I have T-shirts that are made for the show. I spend 3 times the amount that everybody else, guys like you, would pay. For what? So that it's made in America. So I have my bragging rights, so that I can use cotton from America, printed in New Jersey. This is what we do, because you try to make things better, even if it comes at a cost. That's called a sacrifice. It's called patriotism. It's called stepping up. It's called being a man. Probably all things you don't know anything about, but I'm hoping we can enlighten you. So keep listening to the show. I appreciate the ratings. Jimmy in Greenville. Let us continue. I want to go to Tony, Montreal, Canada, calling us on WVMT out of Vermont. Tony, go right ahead.
Wow. I am amazed at the inculcated propaganda that Jimmy Dude is swallowing down in whatever hellhole he comes from. Talking in a way so derogatorily to a person that is a champion radio host and personality. He should be privileged to be on your show. He should be, deferential, and he should not be so rude and try to get across a logical thought process that a person living in Canada might understand, other than attacking in a derogatory way, an interrogatory that makes no sense and has no linear destination other than, like you said, it was there purposefully made to try to harm you or to try to corner you. So, Jimmy, anytime you want to come and have a conversation with a 32-year veteran of the litigation courts in Canada, where I learned how to speak to judges and speak to other lawyers, I'd be more than happy to help you learn your craft so that you can come to a logical and educated, let's say, conclusion to your ideas, which are obviously on the way of an elementary level of understanding of politics. That being said,
Tony, thank you. I just want to say it's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Rich, I love you, man. You are one of the few people that, I'm 66, and, I had to put up with legacy media misleading us. And the great thing about you is that you're not afraid to talk to anybody, whether they're MAGAs, whether they're pro-Bidens, or just like this guy, Jib. And once I asked your producer, why do you do it? And you'd said, I do it because I want to get these guys on. Maybe it might give me some ratings, but at least I give them a soapbox.
Yeah, and you know what? I want you to hear those people. A lot of times people in our business will cut them out because, there's really no value in that, right? It doesn't add to the radio show. I realize that, to my own detriment. But however, I think it adds to the national conversation. When you don't shut someone like that down and you give them a legitimate chance, it's giving them all the rope to hang themselves. They have nothing left. These are vile, angry people that can't make an argument. The guy coming with Ghislaine Maxwell, pedophile, blah, 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 more nonsense. This has nothing to do with how the United States is running. This is a clear indication to me that we're doing really well.
And I'll just say this, Rich. What you just said is reality. Because if we just hear the right and the right and the right, we're not hearing what these people are saying. And it's good for us to be grounded in this nonsense that they keep spewing, And it's propaganda. And when I first called your producer, I said I want to talk about Karen Bass. And I just want to say one quick thing. I call her Karen Rock Bass or Karen I lost my tongue in Ghana Bass. A person that's a Biden appointee. She learned nothing, and she's the total incompetent person attacking the Trump organization, ICE, and everybody that is trying to implement a sane and legal immigration policy. When you let 20 million people in, there's going to be illegal people. So eventually you're going to have to leave. They're going to have to leave. So calling ICE agents racist because they go to locations where people gather to get jobs, and even I know that they go to Home Depots in New Hampshire and hang out. I mean, I see a lot of people from different countries that can't speak English are hanging out there. So that's not racism. What I would like to ask Karen Bass, if she's listening, and her supporters, if you're going to speak of legality, let's talk about illegality, and let's talk about maybe 100 manslaughter charges against you and the 3 Christians for emptying the water tanks, emptying the water reservoirs, not taking care of broken hydrants, making sure that the Santa Anita winds, which were coming, would create more havoc and more fire deaths. When you were in Ghana, I don't know what you were doing in Ghana.
Who knows, right? Who knows what she was doing in Ghana? Tony, I got to take a pause here. But thanks for your thoughts. I appreciate it. And you're right. Karen Bass is just... I don't know where to start with her. I mean, I think we've criticized her plenty. She's in over her head, but she's in a place where it's a slam dunk to get elected as a Democrat. And hopefully that changes soon. But Californians, Angelinos, they deserve more. Shout out to KVTA, by the way. Anyway, Tony, thanks for the call, brother. Amigos, we're coming right back. Some final thoughts on this immigration topic that I wanted to share earlier. And and that's it. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, with minutes to go on the clock, I want to ask you a question. Do you know who contributes to the economy enormously? Who spends money locally, buys cars, jewelry, designer clothes, eats out at restaurants that employ servers and bartenders and whatnot, and always hires local staff for their business? Who? I'll tell you who. Drug dealers. And do we as a society ever make the argument that arresting them and taking them off the street would negatively impact our economy? I don't think we do. So therefore, why do we do that? Why don't we do that? Well, of course we don't do it. Since when does the economic impact of something and, determining whether it's illegal or unlawful or lawful, right? It doesn't, right? Economic impact doesn't determine legality. But yet when it comes to what Karen Bass is making the argument about, the economy, that we're taking jobs away from illegal immigrants and deporting them would hurt our economy. I have to say, do we ever make that argument when we say, listen, if you lock up these local drug dealers, man, there's going to be a lot of people in the projects that don't have a job. Nobody says that because that's not a consideration. Again, that's more of those, what do they call me? A middle school math flunky. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night and God bless you, America.